think all saw me present on it. So I don't really want to review too much of the information because I know that's what you guys have been reading about and thinking about for a few weeks now. But I do hope that like now that you see the images full size, you can kind of hopefully pick out a few that kind of will be good for illustrating the various points. Just to make a few notes about things right now that you may be wondering about, these rails are going to have text on them. The panels are getting installed tomorrow morning. So that the text corresponding to each section will run along the bottom of these panels. Also, so in each of the monitors there will be moving image and sound. This monitor will have a slideshow of additional images that kind of illustrate this section, as well as audio of kind of a pioneer folk song, which is actually being performed by the Gavatron, which is a kibbutz folk music company that's been in existence since 1948. And then on this monitor will be an excerpt from a podcast with Meromi, who was an artist we worked with in Do Not Destroy. And she has some really great, interesting things to say kind of about how her childhood growing up on a kibbutz really influenced her work today. She discusses what she calls the junkyard playground, which was basically just like a large space with all different kinds of objects and like materials basically, and the kids, part of their education was basically spending time there building up these worlds and then breaking them down kind of at the end of the week. But she's also been really generous and was able to supply us with photos of this space on the kibbutz she grew up on. So you can actually see there's like old computers and kitchen chairs and funny looking tables and all kinds of weird shelving and stuff like that.
Was that all they had to play with, or was that just their favorite thing?
No. Neither kind of. It was a space that was kind of, it was part of kind of the educational curriculum is the way that she described it, and so kind of part of their school day would be devoted to spending time here and kind of playing out these imaginative worlds that they would create using the objects in this space. Also, following that clip, there will be a clip of kind of excerpts from a dance performed by the Kibbutz Contemporary Dance Company, which is, as their title of the organization kind of explains, they are a contemporary dance company based out of a kibbutz, and are a great example of kind of some of the ways that kibbutz culture and Israeli culture was kind of disseminated through these traveling both dance groups and orchestras, and it also kind of recalls the fact that dance is kind of an early and important part in kibbutz culture and the image of the kibbutz. You know, these idealistic pioneers, you know, kind of hanging out in the Chader Ochel and dancing the hora, you know, to this folk music, which was very widely disseminated as kind of an image of the kibbutz. So I think that in terms of touring, these two sections are really great for discussing, as I kind of mentioned before, for laying out the actual history of the kibbutz and what that was like. But I think there's a lot of great elements relating to kind of innovation and the transformative nature of the kibbutz, which is a great time to move on to this section. This is all about the kibbutz today. So all different kinds of things, from drip irrigation, which was actually started on, it's manufactured and distributed from a company that was actually founded on a kibbutz. Then there is, and so obviously that started a long time because that agricultural practice has been in use for probably 60 years now. And then more recently, you can see the solar panels on Kibbutz Keturah, which is Israel's first commercial solar field. So the energy that's produced here actually gets distributed amongst the communities surrounding the kibbutz to supply them energy. Also, I think the image on the far left of kind of the environmental agriculture at Kibbutz Lotan is another great example of kind of innovation on the kibbutz. So they're really interested in sustainable agriculture and permaculture practices, and kind of building with the resources that are available and building really efficiently. All of which kind of, and I think the architectural component also kind of recalls kind of some of the earlier importance of architecture on the kibbutz, in terms of like creating community spaces in the way that that was important for the structure of the community.
Claire, just quick, I know some of the images have changed out. Can you send, I'm like asking you this on camera, can you send revised captions, image captions for the new images, and I'll make sure to send to you guys.
Yes, I will. Yeah.
Are these all agricultural in the kibbutz today, or do we have any urban?
So this is an urban kibbutz scene, or an urban kibbutz
Which one
right here.
is that?
This is Kibbutz Mikvan. So I think most of these have, so let's see, this is agriculture. These three images are all Kibbutz Lotan, which is the sustainable permaculture, eco-architecture kibbutz. These two, I'm not actually sure about what their main means of economical support is on these two kibbutzim, but I'm happy to do a quick search and see if I can figure that out. But it's good to mention that, I mean, while these are agricultural examples, and a lot of the kibbutz have kind of moved back to that model or moved back to more innovative explorations of that model, there are a number of kibbutzim that rely mainly on manufacturing for income. And that's kind of referred to in the text, that it's a bit of a split, that while some have kind of returned to those agricultural roots, a lot have kind of diversified from that original model. So I don't want to go into too much more depth, just because I know you know a lot, but I'm happy to answer any questions or clarify on any points that you might have. Yeah?
What is that image of the,
This?
the geodesic dome?
So they, I'm not sure specifically what they're doing, but Kibbutz Lotan runs a number of kind of seminars and educational courses, both shorter and longer term, some of which deal with environmental architecture and building sustainably. All of the architecture on their kibbutz kind of follows that model. So whether this is part of one of kind of their the educational classes that they hold there, or whether this is actually long-term building on the kibbutz, I'm not sure, but it falls into both categories.
So if I can just ask Dan and Claire and Jean just to think, maybe just even brainstorm aloud about, if you were touring and starting with this section and about to move your group of visitors to work in progress, kind of what kind of conceptual transition might you make? I mean, I think this is where our tour guides are kind of wrestling with how to best articulate that transition from here to there. And I don't mean to put you on the spot. It can just really be like a sharing of ideas.
I mean, I think that one of the main concepts of the kibbutz is this idea of people working together and collaborating. And I think, as we've talked about a little bit in some of your trainings, sometimes that means a loss of the individual for the group, but ultimately it really is about participation and community. And I think that translates really well into work in progress, just sort of conceptually. And I do want to kind of remind you all that the title Work in Progress, considering utopia is important. We're not showcasing artists that are giving you this straightforward, this is what I think utopia is. It's really about considering utopia, and what that means, and what kind of some of the pitfalls of certain models are, or what are ways that we can continue to work towards utopia. And all three of the artists have an element of people working together, participating, to kind of work towards a utopia. And I think you can also look at it more in sort of a more concrete way if you want to look at particular connections. Oded Hirsch, as you know, his videos and photographs are taken on a kibbutz. He grew up on a kibbutz. So there's that direct connection, and then Ohad Meromi's work is inspired by kibbutz architecture, as well as kind of the Hadar Ohel, the meeting point for the kibbutz. And then with Elisheva's work, it's not directly related to a kibbutz, but it does have this, especially the work, the tools are in your hands, is kind of this agricultural or pastoral vista that connects to the more rural ideal of the original kibbutzim. And I think if you're looking at her work, it's really about taking these magnets, and you as an individual have this power to create your own utopia, and you can do it with other people. You're adding to a scene that may very well include other people's images of utopia. So, you know, you have to kind of adapt your own vision to work with other people's that are either creating images with the magnets at the same time, or have done it earlier in the day. So, I mean, you could think about the group versus the individual there. In Ohad's work, people can walk on the stage, and it's really, the activations, which we've talked a little bit about, are kind of about people coming together, and it really is about multiple people thinking together, having discussions, dialogues, even kind of having a moment to themselves, but within the context of a group.
So if we had to summarize that in a pithy 2-sentence transition for a tour.
That was great.
But it was really, thank you.
I don't have much to add to that. I would just, basically talking about PIF. This is a little bit more kind of passive and historical, although it goes to some contemporary things, and the work in that room is much more active. Either you're doing something or you're watching people do something very active, so that could be one. I think that's probably the main passive to active PIF.
Great.
Yeah, I think that what Jean said about kind of considering models, I think that in both these cases, I think that in terms of looking at this in terms of kind of the contemporary work, it is important to remember that like the kibbutz was a model, and that it's struggled in kind of figuring out where that model works and where it doesn't work, but in a very like real life, real time kind of way. So I think that's kind of how I would tie that in.
Great.
I was also just going to add, in terms of the multimedia, we're working to get that online so that you'll have a chance to kind of look at it at home if you want, or to let people know that it'll be up soon if they want to explore more. And if people are online, if they're looking at the exhibition, they'll have a chance to see some of that beforehand, which hopefully will give them some the multimedia on the monitors.
And I think you have links to most of what's going to be on view that Claire sent.
Is that the Kibbutz Today piece?
It's the
Isn't there a section on
Kibbutz.
Kibbutz to-
This is
connections?
Oh.
Yeah, so then the Bayer connection will be in a little flip book, which will be right here.
And do we have a second copy for touring?
We don't.
Okay, can we make a second copy?
Yeah,
Great.
yeah.
By multimedia, I meant the Meromi podcast and her images of the educational, the extreme DIY junkyard education, and then the Kibbutz Dance Company, and then the third one is the, what's the third one again?
The song and
The song, the Givatron,
images.
the leave note to build and be built, from which the exhibition draws its subtitle, and images from early in the Kibbutz movement.
Excuse me, Claire, you started talking about the flip book. Would you tell us what the flip book is going to...
So that's where that kind of like Bay Area connection will live for the exhibition. So there's a reference to kind of the early kind of socialist leanings of the Petaluma chicken farmers, as well as references to contemporary Bay Area organizations that have kind of been inspired by the kibbutz. So like kibbutz component at Camp Newman, Kibbutz Yarok, also Urban Adamah.
So it's that fourth section of your
Yeah.
checklist. It's
Yeah.
just not housed in the vitrines. It's housed in a book.
Okay.
Should we, anything else here? Okay, so let's move to the gallery.